Yo, what's going on guys? I'm Jay Cartere, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing Rise of the Tomb Raider, the 20-year celebration edition for the PS4. First off, let's start with my experience. Now, I played the Tomb Raider reboot about 2 years ago and I thought it was cool. It wasn't breathtaking or anything, but it was competent enough and there was fun to be had with it. Prior to that Tomb Raider reboot, I'd probably played about 2 Tomb Raider games. I remember playing Angel of Darkness on the PS2, but I don't remember it enough to know whether I actually liked it or not. I do, however, remember the early Tomb Raider games being very clunky in terms of controls and aiming. That is far from the case here. In this video, I'm going to let you know whether Rise of the Tomb Raider is worth its asking price or whether you should just leave it at. Gameplay. If you played the Tomb Raider reboot from 2013, you'll already be familiar with the gameplay present in this game. You still have an open area that you can run around, littered with campfires to save at or spend skill points and frequent checkpoints. You can focus on progressing through the main story, or you can venture into optional tombs for some good old tomb raiding. These tombs provide you with new upgrades or skills and are pretty easy to complete. There's no real in-depth puzzles that require a lot of thinking here. The puzzles usually just require you to be aware of all the pieces available and then put them together. You're also provided hints by Lara, so you can never get stuck for too long. This works, seeing as I view Rise of the Tomb Raider as an action-adventure game and not a puzzle game, but I would have appreciated my intelligence being tested a little bit more. Also, there's no real danger when exploring. It would have been better and more exhilarating if there were traps in the tombs and caves. There are traps in some places in the game, but they're just pits with spikes, which are quite easy to avoid. The climbing and traversal is excellently done. The game is very good at communicating where you can and can't jump to, signified by white paint streaks on every reachable ledge. I hardly ever died due to poor camera angles or misplaced steps, and this is probably the best climbing or traversal I've ever experienced in this type of game. Scenery also breaks away as you climb around, further adding to the immersion. There's a tremendous ease of use when it comes to picking this game up. I didn't play it for a week due to the release of Watch Dogs 2 and my review for that, but as soon as I jumped back in, I knew exactly how to play and got back into the swing of things immediately. There's not many games that can do that. I usually feel at odds when I come back to a game after not playing for a while, but with this game it was like putting on an old jacket and it fit perfectly. Unlocking new abilities keeps the traversal fresh and interesting. The steady drip of unlocks as I progressed through the story kept me engaged and giddy to test out my new toys. The combat in this game is also great. It's easy enough to get through enemies and you have a variety of weapons to do so, but you can't take much damage either, so it can get very tense at times. I nearly died on many occasions, but I actually died less than 10 times in combat. I felt powerful yet fragile, and I think this is the perfect balance for good edge of your seat gameplay without the frustration of losing or dying too frequently. Unfortunately, you can't dual wield pistols like classic Lara Croft, and that's a damn shame. There also aren't any loading screens apart from after you die. The loading screens seem to be masked by a short transition scene between areas, for example, crawling through a tunnel or squeezing through a crack in the wall. The gameplay is phenomenal and as smooth as butter in my opinion. I had so much fun that it's probably some of the best gameplay I've experienced this year. Story.
They're done. No amount of money is gonna get them through those mountains.
The lost city's up there, somewhere.
That's gonna be a hell of a climb.
In Rise of the Tomb Raider, Lara Croft becomes more than a survivor as she embarks on her first tomb raiding expedition to the most treacherous and remote regions of Siberia. Lara follows in her dad's footsteps in order to restore respect to his name, try to put some respect on his name, and maybe cure all diseases and that. The story really is not amazing here. I didn't care about any of the characters except for Lara, and the villain is super evil with no real redeeming qualities. Lara is a bit of a goody two-shoes, but she's not super annoying and over-righteous. However, there was a twist near the end of the game that I didn't see coming, which doesn't usually happen to me. I didn't like the ending, but it wasn't that bad, and I can tell that they're setting things up for a sequel. You can also find audio recordings and relics that help flesh out the story, but it never really became a major driving factor for me. All in all, the story is quite mediocre here. Graphics and sound. The graphics here are great. Lara looks beautiful and so does everything else. The graphics aren't outstanding, but they are in line with what we've come to expect from this current generation of gaming. The sound is pretty good in terms of voice acting, although there were some really bad attempts at a Russian accent in a few audio tapes later in the game. For the most part, everything was a-okay. The gun sounds did sound a little hollow or tin-like at times, but it wasn't anything majorly off-putting. Modes.
Lara, it is unfortunate that you have forced my hand in this matter, but so be it. I will never allow you to make this manor your home again. If you stay, you will perish like your pathetic father.
There are a fair few modes that you can explore and have fun with separate from the main story. The 20-year edition also comes with all the previously released DLC. The main thing that ties most of these modes together is a card system which allows you to add modifiers to your experience to make things more challenging or easier on yourself as you wish, or just experience weird changes like making your enemies have giant heads or playing as the Lara from Angel of Darkness. Blood Ties seems like a story heavy mode based in the craft manner. You're focused on finding information and listening to audio snippets in order to solve a mystery. It doesn't seem like it has combat, but I haven't fully played through it. I haven't fully played through all of these modes, to be honest. I only fully played through the campaign, but whether it's worth the price or not was really decided by the end of me finishing the campaign, so it doesn't really matter. Endurance mode adds a few survival elements to the game, such as managing your hunger and heat whilst tasking you with searching for artifacts and relics. You can also play this mode in online multiplayer by inviting someone on your friends list or using matchmaking. I did test out the matchmaking and there are people still playing in case you were worried about that. In Cold Darkness mode, Trinity soldiers have become infected. This results in them having reduced sight but makes them attracted to sound, so you have to crouch around a lot. This mode seems to resolve around a puzzle which was quite confusing the first time playing, so this might be exactly what the main campaign was missing in terms of more difficult puzzles, but from first glance it seems a little convoluted. With that being said though, this is probably the extra mode that grabs my attention the most. Lara's Nightmare is a cool mode which has you running around Croft Manor while also shooting zombies. This seems very similar to something like Call of Duty Zombies mode. There's also Score Attack and Chapter Replay, which is basically self-explanatory. And Remnant Resistance is the last mode. You can create missions by putting together different cards to modify difficulty and objectives, or play through missions created by others. Cold Darkness and Endurance seem like the best modes on offer here for my personal taste, and this content adds hours more to the potential playtime you'll get out of the game, although I assume most of these modes would get repetitive really quickly. Is it worth the price?
What's happening, Lara? I'm scared.
Pros. Gameplay is very satisfying. There are a variety of extra modes. Cons. The story is mediocre. Rise of the Tomb Raider 20-year celebration is currently £39.45 on Amazon. It took me over 20 hours to complete the main campaign and I had loads of fun while doing it. If you like the reboot from 2013, you can't go wrong here. With just the main campaign and removing all the extra content, I'd think it was well worth the price. Thanks for watching, guys. Also, thanks for liking and subscribing. Let me know what you thought of Rise of the Tomb Raider in the comment section below. And if you want to check out the rest of my reviews, you can click on the playlist on the screen. Also, if you want to buy Rise of the Tomb Raider, please use the link in the description to support the channel. This is not a sponsor, by the way. It's an Amazon affiliate link and I'll get a couple pennies if you buy anything on Amazon using that link. I'll see you guys in the next video.
It's been a cold winter and it's lasted far too long. So all this warmth I share with you,